Synthesize. To put together information from different parts of a text to see the author's ideas in new ways. When you read a story, such as legends and myths, it is important to keep track of key ideas and events that appear in the beginning, middle, and end of the story. Let's take a look at Anchor Chart 8. Synthesize. When you synthesize, your thinking changes. Say that again. Thinking changes from page to page, paragraph to paragraph sometimes. And with this, you form new ideas. So here's our first illustration. This is our anchor chart to help us all out. Okay, so out of his mind, we have the little bubbles here, and he's thinking about what he already knows. Okay, ask yourself, do you have any background knowledge of the story going into it? Then feel free to write about it. What are your thoughts already about the story? Okay, if not, then you're going to go ahead and start reading the beginning of the story. In the beginning of the story, you begin to form your first thoughts. Okay, it's going to start small and then it's going to grow over the course of the text. If you think about it, at the beginning of the story, a lot of times we are introduced to the main character. We also know about, that very first setting of the story. And you might also find out some things about your character. You might find out some of your character's emotions and why they're feeling this way. So you begin to ask yourself, what are my first thoughts? What am I thinking based on what I just read? And why am I thinking this way? That's why that because is there. Okay. Okay. And as you continue reading from page to page, you're going to find yourself in the middle of your story. And now you're asking yourself, what am I learning? Because at the beginning of the story, you only get bits and pieces, small pieces of the story. And now you've had time to really dive into this character. And so now your thinking is going to change. Okay. Uh, what is this new information that you've learned about your character? Maybe the problem has been introduced since the beginning of the story. There's more dialogue happening between the characters. So what are you learning? And that's what goes in the second box here. When I was reading, I was thinking this because. So what's going on in the middle of your story that has caused your thinking to grow? And finally, we're going to find ourselves at the end with this new understanding. So think about these two questions. Why this ending? Why did the author choose to end the story this way? And also, what is the author's message? Is there a lesson here? By the end, I was thinking this because. Okay? And that's synthesizing. Now, I know some of you are looking over here at this blue and white illustration or image here, and you're asking yourself, what is this? Okay, I want to give you guys some concrete examples to further your understanding of what it means to synthesize. And this picture is called what I call a ripple effect. Okay, have you ever thrown a rock or pebble in a pond? Well, for those of you who said yes, you've seen this illustration before. At first, when the pebble drops in the water, there's just a small ripple. That's what we're seeing here with this first curvy line. Then that ripple creates a new, larger ripple. That larger ripple continues to create an even larger ripple, and so on. Each ripple grows from the previous ripple, increasing in size, but they all stem from the original drop of the pebble. Just like the growing ripples, our thinking grows as we read. When we first begin reading, we have an initial thought, little pebble, about what the book will be about, or establish first impressions about the characters. However, as we continue reading, our thinking evolves, changes, and grows as we learn new information. Like the ripples, our understanding becomes greater. Okay? So here's another concrete example. Okay? In the first ripple, as just like our anchor chart told us, that's the beginning. So this was this person's first thoughts about at the beginning of the story. At first, I was thinking this was a book about a lion who was going to eat a mouse. Okay, those are those initial thoughts. Now, the person reading is at the middle of the story. Now, I'm thinking that this book is about how a mouse got lucky since the lion let him go. So, this person has been reading for some time. They're at the middle of their story, and there's been more dialogue. They're finding out new things about the characters, so their thinking has changed. And by the end of the story, after reading, I think that this story is really about how anyone can make a difference and be kind no matter their size. So it sounds like they figured out what the author's message was. And that's something you want to think about at the end of your story. Another image here. Take a moment and this probably look familiar to most of us, for especially those who like science. Okay. Here we have a caterpillar that has morphed into a butterfly, and we see some of the process there. So, just like us, we go into a text as a caterpillar and come out of it as a butterfly. In other words, our thinking goes through many changes, just like the caterpillar. Okay. Our last slide with synthesizing. Okay, on last week, you read a story called In the Days of King Adobe. So I read that story as well, just like you guys, and I decided to synthesize while I was reading. And so here am I at the beginning of the story. At first, I was thinking this story is about a poor old woman and two young men eating a meal, enjoying their time together. That's the impression I got at the beginning of the story from paragraph to paragraph. Now I find myself at the middle, and now I'm thinking this book is about two deceitful men who only want to steal the old woman's ham. I'm also thinking the old woman is a good judge of character, wise and serious. And for those of you who read the story, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? Why am I saying she's wise? Because in the middle of the story, we've realized that she was able to take the ham out of their traveling bag and keep it for herself. And in return, they left without any ham. And now I'm at the end of the story where I'm thinking about the author's message and the lesson that I could learn. At the end, I was thinking this story is really about the choices we make for ourselves. Do not be greedy, or you may end up with nothing. Okay? Once again, that's synthesizing. And it's all about how our thoughts change from the beginning of the story on to the end, all the way to the end of the story. Okay?